People worry so much about the work experience. It's flipping your life experience into work.
You look at the hiring process. At the top of the funnel is, hey, give us your resume. We're going to pre-sort you based on just your experience.
When I look at experience, it's not necessarily what's on the resume, but it's how people show up.
Why it matters so much in an interview to be able to weave in your life into your work experience is because very, very, very seldom have I ever come across a high performer at work that just falls to pieces in their regular life.
Most people think experience means job titles and years in a role. That's what hiring managers ask for. That's what shows up on paper.
Don't confuse experience with exposure.
But in legal sales, that version of experience only tells part of the story. What actually sets people apart is how they've lived, what they've learned, and how well they can communicate it.
I used to hire based on me. I always was told, Zach, go find the next you.
In this episode of UnderOath, we're challenging the standard definition of experience and showing how real growth, leadership, and performance come from the stories people carry, not just the roles they've held.
And I've learned over time, there's not another me. It's all 8 billion people in the world, right? They're unique.
UnderOath is powered by Rankings.io, the elite legal marketing agency for personal injury firms on the rise to the top.
Okay, we rolling, boys. Let's do it. Welcome back to Under Oath. Whether you're in marketing, intake, or sales, or you even own a firm, Under Oath cross-examines what does it take to be a successful revenue team. Let's welcome back the defense. First, it's yours truly, Scott Knudson. I'm the Senior Director of Enablement at Rankings, and I'll be the host today, of course. With us, as always, is Zach Ramey, the SVP of Revenue at Rankings. And then, of course, our ringer, Cole Castleberry, the VP of Sales at Rankings. The charge today is on experience. We all come from colorful backgrounds, and the experiences we've had, not just in our work, but in our personal lives, have really shaped us, who we are as leaders, as contributors. And that's true for everyone, right? What things have led to growth for us, and especially has helped us in our sales career, our revenues career, our leadership careers, as we've managed other people and seen and learned from their experiences. What kinds of things, what kinds of experiences do we look for in hiring? That's the charge for today. Let me hit my gavel so it's official. Court's now in session. All right, so we begin with what we call our opening statements. This is where we take the charge, in this case experience, and we connect it to a bit of learning, ideally recently from our positions. I'm in enablement. Zach is in kind of a senior leadership position. Cole obviously manages a big sales team. What's something that you all have learned as it relates to your role about experience? You can kind of pick whatever direction you want, whatever kind of feels emotionally resonant. Zach, we'll start with you. What's something you've learned as an SVP of Revenue as it relates to experience?
Over my career thus far, especially I want to say in hiring positions, is I've had to take my lumps along the way, because in the beginning I used to hire based on me. I always was told, Zach, go find the next you. Go find the next you. And I've learned over time, there's not another me. Right? That's what makes me special. And that's what makes Cole special. There's not another Cole. And that's down the line. That's all 8 billion people in the world, right? They're unique. And I failed, air quote, failed a lot hiring because I kept looking, I would hang on to a quality that I saw in myself about that person. And because I'd been told so many times, go find the next you. But what I've learned over time is it's not about seeing qualities of yourself in people. It's letting them showcase their qualities to you and specific for the role you're hiring for. I've come across so many people that are great, not for that role, right? I would think you're an exceptional employee or leader or whoever it may be, but not for this role. Right. So those are things that I've had to really come to terms with, especially over the last couple of years, that I think is kind of pole vaulted my career, because you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So you need to be able to hire well to be surrounded by those people. So those have been some of my biggest learnings.
I think it's really easy to view yourself as a main contributor on a basketball team. I'm the power forward. I'm that. We should just get 4 other power forwards. It'll be great. And we'll just have a team of power forwards, and it'll be a perfect basketball team, right? And that doesn't work like that, right? You need different people in key different positions. And some of that is going to be they're going to be people who won't, quote unquote, score in the same way. But that team dynamic is really important. I think I've learned something similar on the enablement side in that, when you step into a role, in my case, it's sales support, but it could be leadership or whatever it might be. you kind of view it as one way in the way that you've approached it and be like, well, this is the way that I do it. And so I should continue to make it this way. And something that I've learned is I want to examine, kind of the way that I've done it and the ways that I'm not yet doing it, and look for those gaps. And in a lot of ways, that's really what I'm looking for, are people where there's a little bit of a Venn diagram. They cross over a little bit into some of that stuff that I do, that I prioritize, but they cover a big blind spot that I have. I have 2 enablement folks on my team, for example, and it's great because one of them is kind of on one quadrant and I can trust for certain responsibilities. And the other one is kind of on the opposite end, and I can trust for other responsibilities. And it's really great because I can let them kind of flourish in those areas, and I don't have to be the master of all 3. I can understand those ideas and those kind of core directions. And as my team grows, I'm looking for, okay, like what's the next gap that I have, and who can come in and meld well with that unit, as well as bring something new to the table. So I think you're dead on, Zach. I think mine's really similar. Cole, what about you? What's something you've learned? What, managing AEs or being in a leadership position yourself?
Yeah, I think experience is a double-edged sword. There's certain roles where it's imperative that you have a long-standing experience within that role. Specifically in sales, it's experience does translate into having done the job before, but a lot of times what I look for in candidates, or when I look at experience, is not necessarily what's on the resume, but it's how people show up. It's how you respond to an email, how quickly you engage back with responses. Do you work well on camera? Are you a good conversationalist? And those are things that experience wouldn't necessarily show, right? That resume wouldn't show how good of a communicator you are. Can you make me like you on a 30-minute interview? I'll use one of our employees as an example. She's our Director of Business Development. If you looked at her historical background, she was a teacher and then did outbound, and now she manages outbound. But if you just went off her resume experience, you would never see how dynamic of a person she is in the role, and nobody would question her abilities or tact to get the job done. But again, that doesn't speak directly to the resume. That speaks to her and her individual and how she shows up every day. So it's double-edged because it's important, right? You have to have a baseline to judge off of. But on the other side, it's not the sole argument for whether someone will be successful or not.
I think so often, especially when you look at the hiring process, so much of the top of the funnel is, hey, give us your resume. We're going to pre-sort you based on just your experience. And then in many cases, when you get into the interview, it's like, tell me what you did at this job. Tell me what you did at this job. And it's kind of like unpacking the experience even further. And while there's certainly some merit to that, if you don't have a good idea of kind of what you touched on, Cole, like what are these other intangibles or what are these other key areas that I need to know are there that actually might end up outweighing this, abundance or lack of experience. Like it can go either way. If I don't have those clearly defined, then I am just relying on experience, and that can sometimes just be a coin flip. Now I want to move on to what we call our cross-examination. This is where we take the topic, in this case experience, and we just drill that much further into it. Where does experience factor into kind of the overall goal, which is building a successful revenue team? So I want to talk to you first, Zach. There's sales experience, and then there's non-sales experience. I want to talk really, about non-sales experience. What's a good example, or what's something that you've experienced that's really changed the way you operate in a revenue team?
I think it's about being truthful. And I mean, it really goes back to when I was a kid, and I'm pretty open about this. I talk about it quite a bit on LinkedIn. Everybody here knows it. Cole, Scott, all my people around me at work. But when I was 14, my mom tried to commit suicide for the first time. She tried 9 more times throughout my life. And when I was 20, right around 24, 25, she was successful in that. And I didn't know it, obviously, at the time. That was extremely difficult for me to go through. But over time, I hate to say it, but it got easier to handle because, somebody kept trying that. It was almost like you are building up walls because you feel like you're going to lose that person and what they're putting you through. But I never realized it in the moment, what she was really preparing me for in my life, because my mom had many mental issues and other things that contributed to what happened to her. And I miss her every day. But for me, I had to come to a point, and I talk about this notion a lot of everybody has a story. I call it your crutches or running shoe story, right? There's things everybody has their 10 in life that they went through. For my mom, that was my 10. Cole, you have your 10. Scott, you have your 10. Nobody else's 10 gets to be part of you because you didn't experience theirs, right? So her, for me, was that. And I found out through life, I started realizing that in that crutches running shoe story is everybody either points to something that they say, I didn't make it because of that, right? I couldn't get ahead because of that. And on the other side, I've met into people who said, I've made it because of that, right? I run faster because of that. That's my running shoes. And don't get me wrong, everybody, if you break your leg, you have to get on crutches, you have to limp before you can start running again. Same way, I've been through therapy, still do therapy, right? Like I've had my crutches before, but now I have my running shoes, and that's my mom. And to circling back around to your original question of the point of it, Scott, is I didn't realize it at the time what she was really preparing me for in life. Is I started realizing that I didn't think I could ever be in leadership. I didn't go to college. How am I going to relate to people? I come from Eastern Kentucky, and it was always about getting a degree. Well, I couldn't even get into college. So I was like, I'm just going to be at a factory for the rest of my life. So once I started putting things into play and got asked to be in leadership roles, and I started sharing my mom's story, the things I went through, I was like, oh, I can impact people through telling my experience and how I overcame things and how I'm still learning and I'm still failing, but getting better every single day. And also realized that I'm pretty calm in pretty uncalm situations because of my mom, right? For me, my mom was that 10. To this day, nothing has ever compared to that. Nothing has ever made me feel the way those moments with her made me feel. So I am pretty calm in most situations. I can have a level head. I can make good decisions typically because of that. So looking back, that experience, trust me, I didn't have it, but the experience nonetheless did happen. And I'm a glass half full type person. And I never wanted that to be the worst thing I went through in my childhood also became the worst thing I also still go through in my adulthood, right? I carried that with me. So I've just tried to change the mentality on that and share that story with people. Know life's hard. Know you can overcome stuff. Know you can use it. You can limp with it, but one day you can run with it as well. And like I said, for me, it just really showed me going forward that you can take that experience and share it with others and make something, beautiful out of something that wasn't fabulous.
Yeah. I think it's so impactful. I've obviously heard the story a lot, but it still hits every single time I hear it. And I watch it through your career and how it does impact you every day, in the positive light, how you are able to carry yourself in a professional manner and overcome situations. So I think that's a great example.
What I think is great about that, Zach, too, is you talk about, we're all going to have the thing. And one of the ways it sounds like that you were able to kind of turn that thing into something valuable for, your career growth was sharing it. It was not being afraid of it. Right.
Yep.
I like that distinction of like, sometimes you point to it and say like, that's what's holding me back. And you kind of hide from it. It becomes this kind of shadow. The minute you say, you know what, this is real. It happened. I can't get away from it. If I start sharing it and in that moment, it starts to shape the way you think about it. And yeah, I love how you touched on like this moment that I'm in right now. I mean, it's not nearly as hard as that moment. So yeah, I can have a level head, right? And I think that's a really helpful way, because I think all of us have something in our past that maybe it's just there and yeah, it can affect us in a negative way. Finding ways in which you can share it and like you said, impacting other people, that can help, you face it, but then also learn from it and be like, oh, you know what? Like this is how we open up connections in our mind. And that sounds like it contributed to you being like, well, maybe maybe I don't need this barrier that I thought was there. Maybe that barrier is smaller than I think. Right. And the fact that you kind of shifted that all of a sudden allowed you to get over this hurdle, and that opened up all these new possibilities for you.
Yep. It truly, it did without a doubt shape my life. So many things stem from those moments that I was put through. But I share this video with the team at least once a quarter, and I was shown it a few years ago. But the Duke's women's basketball coach, it's a talk that she was giving them about hard, and she talks about that life is hard, and you all think just because you're getting a Duke degree it's going to get easier. Just because you played basketball at Duke, it's going to get easier. She's like, it only gets harder. And she's like, you know who succeeds the most in life? People who handle hard well, right? And for me, I'm going to say one of the things my mom blessed me with is the ability to handle hard, right? At first, I wasn't good at it, but because of her, I got great at it. Do I love the path I had to go down to get great at it? No. But nonetheless, I am going to take it and I'm going to share that with others. And I'm going to let them know that their 10 can also make them great at handling hard. And they can pass that on to other people around them. And I just think it's important, no matter what you've been through in life, to share it. Because I started sharing my story because everybody knew it. Right. I couldn't hide that from anybody. My mom was gone. Like, I was leaving school during days. I went to homeschool for a little bit because she was gone. Like, it wasn't something that I could hide behind closed doors and not tell anybody. So I had to learn to talk about it. I used to make fun of it. Still do sometimes because I have dark humor and that's how I cope with things. And that's why I started going to therapy. But nonetheless, I think that if you're able to share it, it really touched me how many people I could be able to start impacting. Like, the first time I ever typed that story out on Facebook and posted it, the amount of messages that I just got from a DM perspective was like, I need to start doing this all the time. Because if I can help one person make it through something hard that they're going through, it's worth it. And I know this went on a little bit of a tangent, but it truly is. Like, I think people worry so much about the work experience that it's flipping your life experience into work. And I talk about it often. I don't believe in work-life balance. It's life. Yeah. You get to take pieces from life and combine it, whether it's into work or being a parent or a husband or a wife. And I think when people can combine all those things and not be scared to share any of it, it makes other people open with you. And then you get to learn a little something as well. And then also you get people in your corner that's there to walk through life with you.
Yeah, well, this episode's about experience, and that goes down to life experience. That moment has shaped you to be a great leader, right? And you could speak on all the other sales roles, but definitively that moment is what carries the most weight out of all experience.
Unfortunately or fortunately in this situation, that is the foundation of my career. And while where we're at today, it shapes a lot of the decisions I make. It shapes a lot of the way I coach, I teach, I speak. So, and I know the same for you, Cole, and Scott as well. Like, I mean, it's just those things carry such an impact. And I think it's why you are the leaders you are and why I'm the leader I am, is because we carry that differently.
Yeah. Yeah, Cole, I want to tap in on this a little bit. You know, you are obviously very involved in like the interview process, right? And so say you're interviewing somebody and somebody has this kind of experience like Zach or something similar to that, where they have some kind of hard thing they've gone over or whatever it might be. What things are you looking for from a candidate perspective, right? That signal to you like they're leveraging this well, right? Like what things have you've seen before, somebody has connected something to something else, or what are some of the signs that you see when somebody's gone through maybe a more challenging experience that it tends to relate to them being a meaningful or positive worker on a revenue team?
Yeah, I think it's the articulation of the moment, right? I think in the interview process, in any experience, whether it's the sales experience, work life, external experience, the way you articulate it to how that makes you impactful is what ultimately would sell it for me. It doesn't have to be the experience itself. It's how you communicate it. And that is sales, though. It's communication, right? So if you're good at that, or telling a story or telling a narrative on something, that speaks to me that you are a good candidate for a sales role. Our job is speaking to people, becoming relatable, and then positioning services that bring value to them. And if you can do that in a 30-minute interview, speaking on yourself, I promise you can do it with a service, especially a service like ours that does help businesses and has a great support system to execute well. It's all about communication, especially in an interview. It's not necessarily positioning, I hit 120% of my metrics here, right? I promise everyone comes in and says they hit 120% of their metrics. It's how do you tell that story? How do you tell your experience story? And if you're going into an interview process or you're interviewing with us, keys to the kingdom are create a narrative, tell a story behind your experience that ties into why you would be a good fit.
I think Cole said it best, and it's a word we use quite often. It's conversationalist, right? That you're on the interview, you got the one-way interview video starting out because of the resume said you hit 120% to quota and the jobs you held were there. Like for my story, there's nowhere that isn't on my resume.
Yeah.
That's not a bullet point. It's not something that I said I went through. It's that as a conversationalist, as you said, I'm able to tell my story when I get in front of somebody. Like, you know why I'm here. I got here because of what's on my resume. That's not what I need to speak to. I need to speak to what makes me different, what sets me apart, and how I'm going to make your company better because of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like this. And I think it's good advice both on the life experience and on the work experience. That was a paradigm shift that I had, at least on the work experience side, which is, just saying good team player and coachable, and I hit 120% of quota, competent and excel or whatever. It's like, sure.
You and everybody else, my guy.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, great. What people are looking for, especially, in both your positions where you're looking for, that next game changer, the next X factor come on your team. It's somebody to say, like, I stepped into this office, I stepped into this role, and this is what it looked like. These, there's people with heads chopped off. There was no support here, no this, and this is what I did in the face of that, right? And it's creating a narrative around the bullet point that's on your resume, right? And I think it's really just like, as you said, Zach, your ability to weave in life experience into that, right? The reason that I was able to do that is because I was taught from a young age, or I had this experience, and that changed the way that I think about things. It changed the way that I work, right? I know we talk a lot about like athletics in this space being really impactful for sellers, right? A lot of people will say things like that. I'm like, yeah, I worked my ass off to become a collegiate level X. And what that taught me was that these things matter. And this is how it applies to this role that I had. And this is why I think it'll apply to this job that I'm interviewing for.
Well, I'll tell you why it matters so much in an interview to be able to weave in your life into your work experience is because very, very, very seldom have I ever come across a high performer at work that just falls to pieces in their regular life. Right? Like, you're going to have the stories to intertwine because if you're great at work, you're great at life. Right? And there's reasons why you became that. Like, I talk about my mom. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father, right? Like that's not just, she just didn't make me better at work. I feel like I'm a better person over it, right? Like, and I think when people get into the interview process, like, I want to hear about life. Like, I want to hear about your work experience.
I want to know you, your character, who you are, who am I going to be working with for the foreseeable future? It's not just 120% quota, right? You have substance to bring to the table, and the way you communicate that, to me, that's the biggest selling factor. Again, an interview, you're selling yourself, not your resume, not your achievements. You're selling you.
Well, and sales specific. I mean, when we're involved in hiring for sales specific, that conversationalist becomes it's A1. There's no other thing. But obviously, when we're hiring for other departments and for marketing or sales enablement or whatever, like you're still looking for those intangibles, though, right? Because again, you're not just great at work. Mm-hmm. That's just not how it goes.
What about experiences that kind of are in your control? What's an experience that maybe you wish you would have had earlier in your career that maybe would have just propelled you that much further, or an experience that you would recommend other people to pursue or to attempt that might help them in their careers?
I'm lucky I did learn this at a very young age because I was obsessed with basketball, and we did hard things to be great at basketball. And I was fortunate enough to be on a team that won 2 state championships. So like, we just got to see what hard work could do. But if I could go back and just appear and tell myself something, outside of being like, buy Bitcoin, right? Like if we're just talking about this,
that'd be a good
specific podcast, I would go back and say, choose the hard route every time. And the reason why is because your competition goes down significantly when you choose hard, because everybody else is choosing easy. And I've learned to fall in love when I'm in the midst of something I deem hard, because I know I'm one of few doing it. Because I know a lot of people quit already. And what keeps driving me is now everybody that's doing it with me got the same mindset I do. You love hard, right? And if I could show up and tell myself that from a young age, when stuff gets hard, you should relish in it because you and only a few others are doing it.
I would say that a core principle I wish I would have applied to myself earlier is trusting my judgment always. I've made it to the positions I'm at and the successes that we've had, and because of the judgment that's applied. And for a long time, I was nervous, self-conscious. I don't know enough. These people know more. My input doesn't matter, and it does, right? It did in every role prior, and the ideas. And me and Zach can go on a tear about our Thrive Days and some of the initiatives that we put together that nobody else was thinking of, but we trusted our judgment and it paid out for us. So throughout my entire youth, early career, even today, just trusting my judgment always, versus having that self-doubt would be an impactful statement for my youthful career side.
I think Cole's is a good one for people, because you can also train your judgment, right? You should always trust it, because if it's wrong, guess what's going to happen next time? Your judgment's going to get better.
Yeah, so I think that goes to our failure. You never really fail. You trust your judgment and you're going to learn from it, right?
Exactly. But at some point, you have to start trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, that trust, you're going to start training it to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I love that.
We talked a lot about candidates, and I love when we have a candidate join us and they're in a leadership role and they just make the decision, right? And then they get the outcome that they're wanting and they're hype about it. The negative, they have an area to learn for, and I encourage that. You got to trust yourself. You got to make those choices. I don't want Zach to make every choice for me. Then what's my value, right? Scott, I don't want you to make every choice for your department. What's your value, right? So,
and those points go back to our autonomy episode.
Absolutely.
Right? At the end of the day, if you don't have the autonomy, you don't trust your people around it, you got the wrong people, you don't trust yourself, culture, everything just starts declining.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. I think something I've learned, which is similar to this, both of these ideas, is we always underestimate our capacity. In most roles, it's really easy to be like, well, this is what I do and this is all I can do. And I remember feeling like that for a long time, but like, this is all I can do. Like when I was a BDR a decade ago or 15 years ago, it was like, yeah, I do my dials. My hands are tied. That's all I can do.
Man, you're old, Scott.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
15 years ago.
Yeah. Maybe like 12 years ago.
Okay. That's way better.
Yeah. I'm very young, as you can tell by my gray hair. As I've grown and developed and my responsibilities have grown, I've been like, oh, actually I'm able to do this and that all at the same time. And I've had different roles where I did, considerably less things. And so you might be thinking in the moment, like that I couldn't do any more than I'm doing now. And I promise you that you can. Your capacity, like you just don't understand your own capacity. And look no further than anybody who's gone to the gym ever in their life. They're like, I can only do 5 push-ups. I can only do 10 push-ups. It's like, I promise you, you can do more than you think every single time. Talk to any personal trainer. It's like, oh no, like the untapped potential is limitless with so many people.
I said both of those statements the first time I stepped in the gym. I can only do 2 of these. So
I know you all are going to have seen this TikTok, Instagram, whatever. What's the movie with the boy that's doing the bear crawl on the football field and the guy straps him to his back and he blindfolds him? It's a young kid football movie. But anyways, Scott, to your point, whatever movie this is, the boy that's in, I guess I'm going to say high school on this level, they want to show how far he can get with somebody on his back bear crawling. And he thinks they're trying to get to the 50-yard line, right? And he was like, I can't do it, coach. And he's like, yes, you can. You're going to give me everything you got. And they blindfold him. And the coach gets down with him, is like crawling with him and yelling at him. And he's like, I don't have any more. And he finally gets to the spot he thinks he's at the 50-yard line, and he collapses, and he got to the other goal line. He doubled what he could do, right? Or what he thought he was going to be able to do. So to your point, Scott, I think people 100% right. They stop when it starts getting hard, and you're capable of so much more past hard.
So much more. Exactly. Love that. All right. I'm going to throw a little curveball for you here, guys. Normally we move into what we call the objection part of the episode, but we're going to change it up. We're going to do a new segment, and this is called Exhibit A. We're talking about experience. We're going to take the opportunity to showcase our experience and, a little bit of our background, our lifestyle, what we've done, as it relates to our roles. as a way to, give a little bit of evidence to, we know a little bit about what we're talking about here. I'm the Senior Director of Sales Enablement at Rankings currently. I joked about it 15 years ago or so. We'll say 12 years ago. I've been in sales for almost my entire life. My dad was in sales. My mom was in sales. And when I was 17, my brother-in-law convinced me to go knocking door-to-door alarm sales with him in Oakland, California, which was a terrifying experience. And I wouldn't recommend it to any 17-year-olds knocking in doors in Oakland. But I learned a lot about myself and what I was, capable of doing there. Got into software and really kind of went through the sales journey, became a BDR, climbed up to an AE, and then was in software sales for a long time, for 7-8 years. In the middle of that, I realized I want to be in sales support. I had a mentor who was in sales enablement. I really liked his approach to things, and I found myself I want to do that. But I knew that in order for me to do that, I had to be great at what I was doing right now. And so I made sure I qualified for 2 President's Clubs and was consistent in selling before I could make the case at one of my companies I worked for that I was good enough to enable the sales team, because I'd done it before and I'd done it well before. And so working in a lot of cool companies. I worked at Lucid. I worked at a company called Divvy, and then they're all called Bill. This is where I was able to position myself as, hey, let me start the enablement program here. They weren't hiring for it. I just said, hey, we need this. I'm qualified to do it. And that was probably one of the most refining fires for me in my career. I think it kind of supercharged and sped up that company. I was onboarding 12 people every other week. The sales team grew from 10 to 100 in the span of 6 months. It grew crazy fast. And so I was able to see a lot of hyper growth and really develop a lot of my enablement skills there. And ultimately they got bought for, I think, $2.5 billion, Divvy did, by Bill.com. So that was a fun rush going through that whole experience. And then really it was, hey, I missed some of those old startup days. I want to build the foundation again, come in sooner and find that next kind of rocket ship. And so went to a few different spots where I kind of expanded my enablement capabilities, where I learned a lot more about sales ops. I worked at companies called Rever and Close, where I learned how to manage a CRM, build books for sellers, scale small teams, interface with a lot more departments, things like that. And then ultimately ended up at Rankings, where I saw in Zach and Chris and the team those necessary components of leadership that I had seen back at Divvy and had seen at other successful companies. Of this is the kind of place that is building something cool and special, and these guys will speak to the growth of Rankings in a short time, but obviously we'll be able to see quite a bit of growth since then. So when I speak about enablement, something that's really important for me is I come from a sales background. I come from somebody who's been in seat and has carried a quota for a long time, and then transitioned into enablement to say, if I were selling now, what would I want? What friction would I want removed? How would I want books distributed? How do I want leads distributed? Things like that. So that's a big part of my philosophy, is really sales-minded enablement seat. And that's kind of what I brought to Rankings. So that's my exhibit A for what gives me at least a little bit of, ground to walk on in this podcast. Cole, how about I kick it over to you? Will be exhibit B?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we talk in the sales experience, I think one of the things that truly shaped me for communication and leading is one of my first jobs outside of high school in the 1 year of college that I did was traveling with a band and handling production. And it was high intensity from a physical standpoint, but also I was in a new city every single day talking to new people, and I was in charge of production setup. So I had to communicate start to finish on the day, the tasks that were going to be handled, divvy out work alongside, organize, lead in those efforts. And I think that really shaped me from communicating, meeting new people every day, having to be a likable person because they have to work with you all day to get set up, right? Help me lead and effectively organize things. So that was the starting point. From there, I also cut my teeth in the sales world, door to door. I sold for Aflac for 2 years, business to business to business, open swinging doors. I actually met Zach through networking while I was in insurance sales. and just naturally we connected through conversation, got coffees, referred business to each other, where I came on to thrive. I was a multi-time President's Club winner there and stepped into my first true leadership role, where a lot of those efforts, similar to you, Scott, when I led, I wanted to lead in a way of, I've been in the role, how would I want to be respected as an AE from a leader? What also was I missing? What did I want to bring to the table from those past experiences that other people might not have had? So I think all of those things just really shaped me from a foundational level. From a metrics standpoint, I'm really proud of our metrics here. I think from scale and mass, I'll let Zach do the honor of sharing the numbers, but we've really proud of what we've accomplished over the last 18, 19 months that we've been in chair here. And it's just the beginning stages of what I know is to come as we still shape. I say it all the time, we're not even good yet. And I think that's always been a statement that I've applied throughout my whole career, is there's always room for opportunity. But as I look at us here, it's very exciting. So setting my stage is, I've done it. I've been in the sales. I've been successful as an individual contributor, but I've also been successful in the leadership role. I led a team at Bird Eye and was the number one team consecutively for almost 2 years, unanimously undefeated, which was really, really awesome to hang that crown and come to rankings as an undefeated team. So very proud of all those things, but I'll let Zach talk on rankings here and those numbers.
And Cole won't say this, but working next to Cole, I mean, we've had several people who've worked with Cole, reported to Cole, who have taken pay cuts, who have taken big risks and jumps just to get to work with Cole again. So like that, when we talk about that leadership experience, right? Something like working with a band for a couple of years, somebody might think like, oh, it has nothing to do with sales. But I love the way that you said, like, no, like this, like I had to meet so many people and I had to make an impression and manage all these different things. These, especially musicians, I'm sure, are not just like they're not dramatic. They certainly come with their own, things to juggle. So yeah, I just think it's worth highlighting. Like, people love Cole and it's clear, and I think his experience absolutely speaks to that.
Scott, I'm actually glad you did bring that up. You're right. I wouldn't say those things, but to me, that's probably the most proud accomplishment I had, that people would take a risk and join me in a new venture or follow me, as if we want to put it. It truly is, out of all the sales accolades, the fact that people want to continue working with me will always be the shining star for me.
Okay, Zach, send us home.
All right, well, buckle up because it's going to take a while. I was born in 1992, and that's where it all started.
Scott just
It was a cold
introduced-
day in Kentucky.
Well, first off, Scott, I'm poking fun at Scott's years. I also got into the workforce 13 years ago, so I can't say too much about it. But so I touched on my mom a little bit, but I do want to take you through the other parts of my childhood leading up to where we're at today, in Exhibit C, I guess.
That's right.
For this segment. And I told you I didn't make it to college, or it didn't go, but for me, I feel like I was just wired differently. Quite frankly, my dad was a small business owner. And I got to see him work his tail off. He worked for coal mines. And I think that's where a lot of my work ethic came through. I saw what he put himself through to provide for our family, and I lived beside his shop for the first 12 years of my life. So I got to watch him leave at 3:00 in the morning when a motor call came in and he had to go. So I think that's where a lot of it stemmed from. Taught me to be a business owner. He took me to auctions, like really taught me that world, because he doesn't like sports. So that's really where I bonded with my dad. But it turned into, in my backpack growing up, going to school, I didn't have books and stuff in it. I had pencils and gum and paper to sell when the teachers walked out of class, right? I had the entrepreneur mindset. I wanted to make money. I didn't care about the assignments that were being done. Whenever the PS3 came out, I went down 2 days beforehand and I was first in line and sold my seat for $1,500. Like, those were the things that I did when I was younger, that really kind of shaped me going forward, which I think my dad played a huge part in that. After I graduated high school, I went to the hospital that's there locally, where I'm from, and parked cars for a little bit. That has nothing to do with sales, but it taught me to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and go park cars and be kind to people that were struggling with a lot of things at a hospital. Ended up moving to Lexington, Kentucky, worked at a factory. for a couple of years, made Dixie cups. So, the little cups you wash your mouth out with at the dentist, probably made those. You're welcome. And then I've always been pretty tech savvy, right? Everybody's got the person in their family that people call when their TV goes out or cell phone's not working. And I've always been that for my family and now my wife's family. So I had a friend that worked at AT&T and got me on there, ended up getting a manager job after about a year and a half. Stayed there for about 3 years. And then one of my best friends at the time was at Thrive. Not Thrive yet, name-wise, but was at Thrive of what we know today. And they were starting a new SaaS-only channel. And I ended up being the first ever rep hire in this SaaS-only channel. And it grew to I think, 150, 160 people, Cole. And still, the channel's not there any longer, but I was the only person ever promoted to a manager inside the SaaS channel out of those 160 reps. Cole ended up getting promoted as well, but went to inside sales. But so I take a lot of pride knowing that I won President's Club my first 2 years in that channel, was the only person ever promoted to manager inside the SaaS channel. And then I got promoted to director, ended up moving to Washington, D.C., took a team that was ranked 52nd to our best that we ever picked out at was 6th in my 4 years. And I was super proud of that. I got to learn a ton, took over a team that had a very wide range of people on it, from former VPs to people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. So I got to really learn a lot at 26, 27 years old on how to manage people who's been in higher positions than me, who has a lot more life experience than me, taught me a ton of stuff. And then fast forward into rankings, got hired as the VP of sales in October of 2023. It was just me and one other rep at the time there, and she's still here today. And whenever I interviewed with Chris, our CEO, I had big aspirations for what I thought we could do. My background is outbound sales. That's at Thrive. You go door knocking, right? That's how me and Cole met, which he just alluded to. So I actually pitched Cole during my interview process because Cole obviously is an amazing leader and knows outbound better than most. So I actually hired him my first day on the job. Started building out an outbound team. The rankings was using an outsourced company, had an abysmal 7% show rate, 0 sales in 8 or 9 months. So we ended up getting rid of them, taking the same exact money and building out a team. The goal that we had on our heads going into 2024 for the outbound team was 3 outbound sales for $300,000. And with the numbers Cole didn't allude to that I will for him is his team brought in 32 sales for right at $4 million in 2024. So just unbelievable numbers from the outbound perspective. From a team perspective, the year prior in 2023, they did $8 million as a whole for the year. That was our goal going into 2024. The team did a little over 16.5 million in totality going for 2024, which has obviously allowed us to grow a ton sales wise. Scott came in early on sales enablement wise. I was very fortunate that I got put over revenue. So I took over marketing and our conference that we do and events, so on and so forth. Now today, we had a hefty goal going into this year, but I think we're going to end up being around, north of 20 million this year with a really, really strong team of AEs, BDRs. Just sales enablement. We have an amazing ecosystem that we've got to build here. And I've been very blessed that I've been able to sit beside Chris and learn. That's honestly the number one reason I ended up coming to ranking is because I felt that I had learned so much at Thrive, and I'm so lucky I got to be there and learn from the people that I had, but it's also a $1 billion company. So one of the biggest reasons I came to rankings is I wanted to learn from a CEO. I wanted to report into him. I wanted to learn from him, somebody who cared and was so successful. And I've gotten way more than I bargained for. And I'm super thrilled that I did it. And I will also go back to what Scott said about Cole, about how much people follow him. And I cannot speak to that more, how much people love Cole and how fortunate they are to even have got to work for Cole, because I'm fortunate to be friends with him and have him in my life. But I've had one person follow me in my career, and that's Cole. So I'm blessed to have him come here with me and build what we've built and with you now, Scott. But yeah, just couldn't be happy where we are and what we set out for. But as Cole said, we're not even good yet. And that's what makes us so excited every day.
Yeah. And I think this is just helpful for those listening, just to understand our backgrounds, where we came from. And we're just, scratching the surface on, this is some of our accolades and our experience or whatever. But these are the things that have helped shape us get to rankings. And as we're building this engine that clearly is growing really fast and we're doing a lot of really cool things, we want our listeners to understand, we have some idea of what we're talking about. We are somewhat of experts, at least in the capacities that we consider ourselves such. And yeah, experience is one of these things that, that's just up until now. We have big goals, big aspirations, lots of things that we plan to do in the future. And a lot of that's going to be failures that we learn from and mistakes that we grow from. But having a team of people who have, varied and colorful and interesting and promising backgrounds can just make all the difference. So we're going to wrap it up. We have one last section here. It's called closing arguments. Really, we just take one topic or idea. It could be something we've talked about, or one quick snippet, a bumper sticker idea that we want to leave with the listeners. I'll start. I've one. Didn't really get to talk about it much on the episode, but it's something that's been bumping around my brain here. And this is don't confuse experience with exposure. And what I mean by that is it's easy to see someone like, oh wow, they worked at Salesforce. Oh wow, they connected to this big. They must have all this great experience. And that's not necessarily true. I think this is why it's important to talk to people and understand their story. But just because you have exposure to something, just because you're next to something, doesn't mean that you have really great experience or even learned anything meaningful from that. So I think that's really good. Prudent wisdom is to make sure that if someone does have exposure to a good and great company, there's a great story there. They can speak to exactly what made that experience great, not just the fact that they happen to be hired at the right time in the right place. That's mine. Zach, what about you? What's a nice thought to leave with the listeners?
I think for me, it would come down to you have experience happen to you every single day. It's up to you to get to tell that story the right way.
Love that.
Every day you have something happen to you that you get to use as experience, life, professional, all the way down the line. It's now in your hands to learn how to tell that story and how you're going to come out on the other side of it.
Beautiful. Well said. Cole, I'll give you the final word here.
Yeah. On the bumper sticker, it's know your story. And it's the same sentiment as Zach's. It's not all about, I love yours, Scott, of exposure, right? It's not about, I was just here. It's what did you learn there? What did you do there? What impact did you make? What happened to you while you were there in your personal life that shaped you to be better in the role? It's knowing your story and being able to articulate that. So your experience does not just live on the resume, it's elsewhere.
Love it. Okay. UnderOathers, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Give us a rating on wherever you're listening. Share us on LinkedIn. Give us some feedback. Tell us if you love us or not. We'll take that feedback and learn from it. And that's good experience for us. That's going to do it for the episode. Catch you guys in the next session. Court is now adjourned.